So today we're with my friend Christian Santiago again.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh. Hold on.
Yeah. We would like to talk. Yeah, the channel, the Shifter Community, is a channel for architecture photographers. We want to do one-take videos. I hate editing for a long time, especially for these things. So. And it's also more natural if you talk like that to the camera, right? So
you look a lot taller than me here, bro. Because you're standing on the hill.
It's just sweet. Yeah.
so I'm like looking up at you.
You're right. I'm not that tall. It's just So yeah, Christian, you've been shooting. You're a commercial architecture photographer, right?
Yeah.
Also in LA. You've been shooting with the Fuji GFX system.
Yeah, a while now.
I would like you to talk about what you like about that.
There's a lot to like, just a lot that frustrates me. We'll just focus on the positive stuff for today. The first thing that I like is the sensor size. I don't mean the resolution, but I mean the actual aspect ratio of the sensor. It's the 4:3. It's a much taller image that you get, which for shooting architecture specifically is awesome because we're always trying to get more height, you know, on our compositions. A lot of the buildings I shoot are very high. A lot of the ceilings I shoot are high, and I personally also just find that the stuff that's higher in the frame is more interesting than like whatever's in the lower part. So I do tend to shoot a little higher on my compositions. And obviously we have tilt-shift lenses that assist with that, but with tilt-shift lenses, especially the ones that you adapt to the GFX, the Canon ones, you kind of degrade the quality every time you shift up on the lens. So if you can get as much in the frame without having to shift initially, it's always better. So that's one of the things I love about the camera. And then of course when you shoot a portrait, it's the same thing, like you just get more height. The second thing that I really like about this camera is the low light performance, which isn't really anything special because almost every camera nowadays is pretty good at that. But it's not something you normally expect from a medium format camera, especially with such a large sensor. And I found it to be such a pleasant surprise. When I first got the camera, I wasn't really pushing the ISO because I was like worried for some reason that I wouldn't be good. But then when I actually started pushing the ISO, I realized like, damn, I'm getting clean images at ISO 1000, 1200. I shot some portraits in Joshua Tree a couple of months ago, that I was shooting at twilight, and I was pushing the ISO. I was at 1250, I believe. And the images were so clean, I actually had to add grain in post to make them look a little more organic, you know. So low light performance is awesome, which also comes in handy when you're using flashes because you don't have to carry bigger flashes around. You can get away with using lighter flashes. There are many times on shoots where, especially when I shoot on the cruise ships, there's not a lot of space. You have to like just kind of cram a light in a corner wherever you can fit it. So being able to just go up on the ISO and use like a 200 watt flash or 251 is very convenient. And also just from a weight standpoint, not having to carry the heavy flashes around all the time makes it really convenient. And with Fuji specifically, you can go to ISO 640 in photos and you just get even better dynamic range for some reason.
How do you feel it?
Huh?
How do you feel it? It's 640. You told me the other day you have more highlights, right?
Yeah, I feel like the highlights are a little softer and they retain more information.
That's great.
So that also adds to the benefit, and plus when you're shooting at 640, again, you don't have to have as powerful of a flash. So I mean, I think that's pretty standard across the entire Fuji line, but having it on the GFX also just adds to the value of the camera for me. And then the other thing, the obvious thing, it's 100 megapixels. That's not the first reason why I would buy this camera. It's that kind of resolution is overkill for most things. But it does come in handy, especially for cropping, especially when you're shooting for clients who are paying you on a commercial scale. They like to have options for cropping for different placements, ads, web ads, social media, etc. So it's really convenient to be able to just shoot like one wide file and being able to crop it, and there's no degradation.
Do you tell your clients that they can crop the image?
Yeah, yeah, and I show them too because I shoot tethered on site.
Yeah.
And and I give them samples of like how it could look cropped.
That's cool. Yeah.
I'm not saying that cropping should be your solution for everything. There are definitely more than enough occasions where you should just get closer or use a zoom lens, like, or you want that background compression.
Yeah.
You don't always want to shoot wide, but it's just very convenient to have the options for resolution.
That's cool.
And then the final thing is the files, the actual files themselves. Honestly, it's like a cheat code. Like it's cheating.
How so?
Because the files have so much information. The 16-bit raw files are so packed with data that you can push, pull, manipulate them to the extreme, and they don't look fake. They don't look artificial. Like with some other cameras, if you start pushing the highlights or the shadows too much, it starts to look a little HDR-y. These look very natural, even when you push them.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah, and look, even in my personal style, I don't really push like shadows, for example, that much. Like I like to keep my shadows dark.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to, like some of my clients want everything, you know, more evenly exposed, I feel very comfortable just pushing the exposure.
Or I guess you can also create layers from a single shot, you know,
yeah,
to edit them in Photoshop. That's a huge.
That's a huge thing too. Like.
Yeah.
So for my workflow, I do a lot of compositing, so I am stacking a lot of layers. But for some shots, in the past, I would do brackets. You know, you do your little exposure brackets. You don't really need to with this camera.
So we said the aspect ratio.
The aspect ratio.
What else did we say?
What else did we say?
Aspect ratio. The
low light,
ISO,
low light performance. The resolution.
Resolution?
Yeah, we're really bad at this.
And what is the main theme that you would change from Fuji GFX? A thing that you don't like?
It's so fucking slow. Sorry,
really?
Can I curse on this? It's so buggy and slow. It's really frustrating. Like if you just like shoot with this camera, hold on, I'm gonna turn it on. Like you hear that?
Yeah.
It's just like, like even the shutter, it's got this like delay, this drag to it. And it's a very buggy camera. And what I mean specifically by that is when you're tethering, which I do a lot of, if you're shooting professionally for commercial sets, like your clients are going to expect you to tether. And it's very buggy with the tethering software that I use. I've used Capture One and I've used a Cam Ranger, and both systems just struggle with it. The image craps out, it cancels out, and I'm always fighting with it.
Must be that their protocols are a bit weird or something. I don't know.
You know what? Somebody much smarter than me probably knows the reason why. I just know that it doesn't always work, and I've looked pretty foolish in front of my clients at times, like fighting. Like it's the worst look, like fighting with your equipment in front of the client.
Yeah.
So I have a Canon R5 that I pull out, that I always have with me, and you notice the difference immediately. When you plug the Canon in, the Canon just works. Like Canon is just, say what you want about them, but they're just workhorses.
Yeah.
They just work all the time, and they're fast and they're snappy, and it's a much better user experience, in my opinion, that I feel like, and user experience matters.
That's good to know.
It goes a long way.
Sometimes these, when you look on YouTube, there are people that just use the camera for a few days, and it's just really good to hear from you that you had it for a long time. Yeah.
You really can't review a camera, especially one like this, just doing like lab tests or just shooting in your studio because Fuji gave you a loaner to review for a week. Like you really need to put it through its paces. And I would say that about any piece of gear. Like take your information, making informed decisions from people who actually use these tools as they're intended in a professional environment, and not just some like vloggers who, you know, are doing it for clout or views or clicks. Like that's my hot take, I guess.
And talking about reviews, what do you have to say about, you have a review coming out, right?
do. Well, I have a review coming out. It's less of a review and more of like I guess more of like a journal of my experience using the camera, because I'm not going to talk about like, you know, this is sharper than this camera and this lens is sharper than that, and you know, I'm not going to do the various autofocus modes to go over that. It's just more about my personal experience having used the camera, my process for the images that I've taken with it, and whether it's worth it or not. And spoiler alert, it's probably not. Like you probably don't need to buy this camera.
So guys, follow Christian on YouTube, Christian Santiago. If you don't follow him yet, he has really good content, also content about AI and other jobs. He's a really good filmmaker and photographer. I really like his work. And yeah, let me
Yeah, go
hold it. The first time, it's one of the first time that I have it in my hands, and it feels big, right?
I like the
substantial.
ergonomics.
Yeah.
It feels very beefy in the hand. It's got weight to it. It's heavy.
Yeah.
And I like that. Like there's been this like trend in cameras to make them as small and light as possible, which is good obviously for like traveling and shit. But when it comes to actual ergonomics, I like heavier cameras. I don't know. It's just.
It looks more like a DSLR size camera, right?
Yeah, and the thumb grip is really nice. It's very deep. It's very comfortable to hold. But that's one thing Fuji got right.
Exactly. I've used other medium format cameras in the past. Not that I own one, but I hold it a few, and they were huge.
Well, they're like really boxy.
Yeah. It's a way smaller. So yeah. I'm not gonna steal it from you. Okay? Thank you, Christian.
I know where you live, bro.
Subscribe to the channel, the Shifter community on Instagram, YouTube, and also Christian Santiago YouTube channel and on Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
How was that?
It was good. Yeah.